to Jason Cunningham, who will be providing captions this session. Please do also use the Q&A feature for any presentation questions. You can choose to do this anonymously, and we'll have probably 15 to 20 minutes at the end for Q&A. Please do also use the chat for any general comments or for technical issues. We have Rebecca Kulich here, who will be monitoring the chat and will be available for help with technical assistance. Rebecca will also be adding some links into the chat. One is for collaborative resource sharing. If you think of a related reading or a video or anything else, please do share it with us in COM's recommended resources, our shared Zotero folder. And then finally, we have Diane here from the COM Steering Committee, who's going to talk to everyone a little bit about our code of conduct.
Hi, everyone. As we are approaching the end of the conference, we would like to take a moment to remind everyone of the COM Code of Conduct. Please remember that this extends to all conference spaces, including our session evaluations. We are all here to learn together, and we hope that everyone can engage in feedback in that spirit of kindness and growth. We are very sorry to share that some of the comments we've received on presentation feedback forms so far don't exemplify the spirit of COM, and some of them are straight up insulting, mean-spirited, or derogatory. We ask that you please remember that words have impact, and that while constructive and challenging criticism is welcome, if you can't abide by that, please refrain from leaving comments. Thank you for your care and attention. And now I'm going to turn it over to our presenters.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Diane, and thank you, Karen. Thanks for joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and okay, am I good to go, Karen? Okay. All right. So thanks for joining us today. It's my absolute pleasure to introduce Adebola Fabiku. She is the Department Head of Access Services at North Carolina State University Libraries in Raleigh. In this role, she provides leadership and management for the Access Services Department, which connects users with experts, collections, technology, and spaces. The department comprises the Ask Us and Resource Sharing Services. She is passionate about researching and utilizing various methods to advocate, retain, and motivate BIPOC library staff and student workers. Adebola currently serves as the chair of ALA's Russo Stars Executive Committee. She obtained her MS-LIS from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, as well as a BS in journalism from the same institution.
And it is my pleasure to introduce Whitney Buccicone, whom I am lucky enough to call my friend. Whitney is the former director of Discovery Services from Special Collections at the University of Virginia. Prior to that, she was the Special Collections cataloging librarian at the University of Washington. And even before that, she had held multiple paraprofessional cataloging positions at the Lilly Library at Indiana University. She holds 2 master's degrees from Indiana University, one in library science and another in arts administration. Her research interests include staff management, special collections, cataloging and metadata, and reparative work in archives and special collections.
Adebola and I met at the University of Washington in Seattle, where she was a middle manager and I had yet to become one. We knew we wanted to work together again in some way, and we are excited to speak to you today about this topic. Just to warn you, whenever Adebola speaks, I usually utter "dang" after she makes a point, and that's going to happen a lot today.
And whenever Whitney makes a point, I raise my hand to say hallelujah like I'm in church. And so we do this a lot when we're on Zoom calls, and so it's very natural for us. And like Whitney said, we just wanted to make sure you were not shocked by this.
Yeah, so the goal of this presentation is to recognize where middle managers can reflect and to become more inclusive in their practice of management by centering anti-racist beliefs. We will cover the recruiting and hiring process to what can be done in the day-to-day life of your staff members to advance DEI strategic plans. We will also cover the end of the staff member's time at an institution. We will share ideas about you as a manager and what you can do to evolve in your role. Most of this information is not new. You've probably read it or heard it in other presentations at other conferences, probably this one. What we want to stress is, as a middle manager, you are empowered to center DEI in the work that you do and what your staff does. Most staff expect the DEI work to come from administration, while administrators tend to wait for it to come from the ground level up, if it ever comes at all. It is our belief that the real work happens in the middle. We were going to give the official Merriam-Webster definition of what a middle manager is, but we think you all know. You are the folks that direct the work that makes your library run. Your folks do the day-to-day work, and you make sure that all of that aligns with bigger picture's goals. That's a very influential position to be in, to direct the work that makes the institution run. If middle managers do that, then they truly have the ability to move DEI initiatives forward and do not need to wait on the administration to make that happen. We do have a couple of disclaimers. First, we're going to go through a lot of information in a short amount of time, and we have saved time at the end for questions. If you would rather, feel free to reach out to us directly. Our contact info will be on the last slide. Next disclaimer is that this topic may upset a few folks, and we want to thank you for working through these difficult emotions with us in this space. We want to encourage you to share whatever you feel comfortable with in the chat, whether that's what's worked at your institution, maybe what hasn't gone so well, or what you've experienced as an individual. Your thoughts and you as a person are welcome here, and thank you for being here with us. Let's get started.
So we have actually another note as well. We recognize that not everyone is an active racist, but we all must recognize that we have inherent biases that influence our day-to-day existence, even at work. And that is where we're going to start. So I want you all to take a second and think back over your career. So please raise your virtual hands if you have ever had a bad boss or a manager at some point. So I'm seeing some thumbs up, some hands raised. So it's kind of like, this Mean Girls theme right here. Everybody has been personally victimized by a Regina George in their life. Many bad managers often derail DEI efforts by creating a toxic working environment that threatens employee safety and well-being. We won't ask you how many of you think that you have ever been a bad manager yourself, but if you're here listening to us, that is a sign that you're willing to self-reflect about your privilege and influence in your current role. As many of us have taken diversity training courses and read articles, we are taking the first step. We're taking the first step in moving our organization forward and making it a better place. I do want to state, though, that showing up to these trainings does not equal pro-diversity. What we discuss in the following slides are suggestions on how to take active steps that can create a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive workplace. So as we go into the next section on hiring and recruitment, I would like to share a story about a hiring committee that I was on at a previous institution. So when we reviewed candidates, the hiring committee wanted to weed out candidates for some of the things that just showed a lot of bias. So for instance, they commented on one person's address stating that they lived too far away from the campus and wouldn't be able to get to work on time. They commented on another person who was applying from out of state stating that they wouldn't understand how expensive it was to live in the city that we were in. With both of these comments, I had to remind the committee that the candidate applied for the position knowing the location and what the salary was because we listed it on the notice of vacancy. So the candidate would probably know best if they could make it to work on time and if they could afford to live in the city. They also made comments on the previous institution that the candidates worked at, stating that they wouldn't understand how difficult it was to work at our high volume, fast-paced library, as they had come from a library that was much smaller than ours. They also made comments on the places where they received their degree, stating that a previous employee had gotten a degree from there and they never wanted to work with another person who went to that school.
There seems to be a lot that went wrong with that hiring committee.
Oh my gosh, yes. It gets better, actually, I guess worse. As we were conducting interviews, a candidate came to the interview dressed in jeans. The committee was very standoffish. And then after the interview, I asked why they were not as friendly as they normally are. They stated it was because she was wearing jeans. But we actually really liked this candidate. She was the most qualified, and actually I was about to offer her the position. But then I found out from HR that she removed herself from the pool. I never found out why, but I personally suspect that it was the cold interview that was conducted.
Yeah, so let's talk about what could have gone better and some tips from our research on how to incorporate DEI into the hiring and recruitment process. We would also love to hear your suggestions in the chat as we talk through our points. So the goal with hiring is to make sure that searches are consistent, transparent, and respectful. This starts with a good notice of vacancy that has been reviewed by multiple folks, both in the library and outside of it. If you have one, make sure you have your ADA officer review it for ableist language. Make sure you're using they, them pronouns, not she or he.
And are your required qualifications actually required, or are they just qualities that you hope your ideal candidate will have?
Oof.
Honestly, if you have an ideal candidate, like, why are we even going through this hiring process? Just like call them and give them the job.
Mm.
Because nobody wants to go through a wasted interview. We know that women and POCs are less likely to apply for a job if they don't have every qualification listed in both the required and preferred sections. So make sure that the qualifications listed are really necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. You also want to include a paragraph near the qualifications section of the ad and have it state that you are willing to accept an application from someone who does not meet all the requirements below, because you and your institution are committed to hiring the best person for the position.
And as we know, recruitment is key to hiring a diverse staff. So advertise in non-traditional places. If you're constantly getting the same type of candidates when you post on the ALA job board, you clearly need to post in other places and spaces. So
Mhm.
find regional and specialized job boards from smaller organizations such as Interest Group. Utilize your networks to have them post on social media or reach out to a colleague at other institutions. Your perfect employee might not even be on the job market, so they wouldn't be looking at job boards, but they might apply if a friend of theirs posts something on social media or reaches out to them personally.
And then ask yourself, who is on your hiring committee? Are they all in the same area of the library? Do you just have catalogers? And have they all had really long tenures at the institution, or do you have new hires? Do they all go to the same college, from the same background? If your committee all looks the same, you aren't going to attract a diverse candidate. Think of how that committee would be received by a person of color who's interviewing for your position. But on the other hand, at the same time, if your employee only has a few underrepresented members on staff, they cannot be the token rep on every hiring committee. Don't burn your staff out.
Yes, hallelujah, right there. We are tired. So yeah, please don't do that. So to try to avoid unconscious bias, remove candidates' information such as name, address, the university that they graduated from, and even the years that they graduated from there. So just block out that text.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I was actually told this by an HR professional once, that most hiring managers and committees are trying to figure out who to weed, but that's actually really flawed. So you want to hire the best candidate, not just the best candidate out of the ones who didn't have a spelling error in their cover letter.
We really are sticklers for typos, aren't we?
There we go.
Well, one of our suggestions when it comes to interviewing is to avoid the cliche interview questions, which are, like, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Instead, give folks an opportunity to highlight their successes. Tell us of a time you felt proud of something you did at work. Could you describe a time you overcame a negative situation and what you learned from it? Questions like these dive deep into who a person is and gives them the chance to share how amazing they are without it coming across as bragging. A question that I've heard and really appreciate is this: is there anything in the job description you will need to grow into, and how can we best support you to do so? This allows the candidate a chance to be vulnerable about their experience while also telling you what they expect from you as a manager and as an institution. What has become a more common practice, and what I've already heard in several sessions so far in this conference, is sending interview questions to the candidates beforehand. Some folks think this denies candidates the opportunity to think on their feet, and I argue that's what follow-up questions are for. Make your interviews conversations, not just search committee asks, interviewee answers. Giving out questions beforehand allows for some prep time, and some folks, especially those who are neurodiverse, benefit greatly from that. It also allows candidates to remove themselves from a search if they do not agree with those questions being asked. And that's not a bad thing. And that leads us to
Hiring for fit.
Adebola. What is wrong with hiring for fit? You want to make sure that the new hire will fit into the department and not cause a disruption of the camaraderie that you've built with your team, right?
No. Well, actually, yeah, about the camaraderie, but no about the fit. So good fit is rooted in bias. When you hire for a good fit, typically you're doing it on gut instinct, but your gut guides you to hire people who are similar to you, which can lead to a homogenous culture. You end up with people who are with similar backgrounds, who think and act in similar ways. That can definitely undermine your organization's diversity and shut people out based on their backgrounds, which can lead to discrimination. So you shouldn't be hiring for fit, but hiring someone who can be successful in the role. So with the tips we provided previously, you would be able to do this.
One thing that I want to emphasize on this slide is the idea of hiring for retention and not in what can be called a checklist mentality. We hired a person of color. Check. We hired someone who speaks Spanish. Check. This reduces new hires to qualities and does not allow them to be individuals. There is an expectation of conformity for new hires that is not inclusive, nor is it equitable. We hire diverse candidates and only think about them conforming to our current work environments with very little thought about their ability to show up to work as their true selves. And oh boy, is that setting everyone up for failure.
Mhm.
So we've seen TikToks and we've read Twitter threads on this next topic. Everything from a person who is neurodiverse being told to not be as direct to women of color being told not to be angry. DEI is not about conformity. It's about accepting folks as who they are and giving them the skills to resolve conflict and work in a healthy way. Notice we say healthy and not professional, and we'll explain why in a minute.
So what we're going to focus on next is including DEI in you and your staff's everyday work practices and how you as a manager can evaluate them on it. One of the things I heard from staff in a prior role was that they do not know or understand how the DEI plan was going to impact them both as an individual and as an employee, specifically with their day-to-day duties. What they wanted is guidance on what to say, what to do, and what not to do. And then they wanted us as managers to provide these specifics. So again, this is that checklist mentality. Use this word, not that word. Attend this training, and then boom, we're done. Nobody's racist anymore. We've solved it. Yay.
Yay.
But if only it were that simple.
If only. So one solution is to create a DEI focus goal for everyone that ties directly into their annual evaluation. And by everyone, I mean everyone from the dean to the frontline desk staff, every single person. It's tempting to be general in this and say something like, as a staff, we prioritize DEI work and make the library a welcoming place. No, you need more detail. Something like, as a staff, we prioritize DEI work and making the library a welcoming place by committing ourselves to regular training on anti-racist workplaces, conflict resolution, and more. The more details, the better. Staff want to know how to succeed in this area, but they need to know how they will be evaluated. I suggest having a short but specific goal that has a separate document that lists how exactly folks do this. Provide ideas, such as suggested trainings, but allow folks to personalize their growth. Make all of this behavior-based, not just goals. If you say someone needs to attend 2 trainings a year before to be, 2 training sessions a year to be successful, that's all some folks will ever do. There's that checklist mentality again. When you include something about behavior, this shifts this and makes it a practice in self-reflection and improvement. Include something about taking and receiving feedback or having difficult conversations. I have to emphasize this part. This has to apply to every level at your institution. Your senior leaders have to do this just as much as your entry-level folks.
Mhm. It is also important to assess the feedback that you are giving your staff members. So ask yourself, how can I be more equitable in the feedback I'm giving? Managers can include written prompts designed to disrupt bias and improve objectivity. Some prompts can include, did you consider performance throughout the entire period of the check-in or review cycle? So managers tend to rate performance on the last few months of an appraisal period, as that is what is freshest in their mind. Can you give 3 examples of how the employee demonstrated a particular capability? So if you say that an employee is always late, can you provide 3 times that they were late, and with specifics on the time and what time they were supposed to be there and what time they actually showed up? Would you use the same language with the opposite gender or race? So for
Right.
example, stating that a Black woman was very blunt, but a white woman was very direct, or that this woman was like the mom to the department because she took care of everyone. But would you ever say that a man was the dad of the department?
Mm.
Is your feedback constructive and clear? Is your feedback forward looking? Do you offer the same amount of feedback, development opportunities or areas of improvement for specific employees as with the rest of your team.
Mhm.
So we also want to stress at this time that you need to recognize your bias in evaluating your staff. Are you making the feedback personal, or are you objectively evaluating the behavior? So like, do you just not like this person and that is why your evaluation is a little bit harsher? So are you holding staff accountable in equal ways?
Dang. Yeah, so all of this is the foundation that of a manager's ability to take and give feedback as well as resolve conflicts as they come up. Can't stress this enough. If you as a manager cannot handle conflict, you cannot prioritize diversity and inclusion. When we say we want an inclusive workplace, that is setting the stage for conflict because different cultures, different personalities, lived experiences being meshed in one workplace will create the potential for conflict. And that's not a bad thing. This is a win situation, not an if. Conflict is going to happen at work, and our jobs as managers is to ensure that we have the skills to navigate those situations. It is a manager's job to welcome every single staff person as they are, especially those with marginalized identities. Staff should not have to change who they are to keep a job, and their job is not to keep you happy. If you expect no conflicts, no difficulties from your staff, you are setting yourself and your staff up for failure.
Mhm.
And that leads us to training. An example of this is that staff must be able to interrupt biased behavior when they see it, not just marginalized folks. Every single person on staff needs to be trained on how to do this and then be supported when it happens. Staff, managers, and admin especially, should be provided training on conflict resolution, taking and receiving feedback, as well as bystander training. If they are expected to behave in a certain way, they must be provided training to be able to do so successfully. After an incident happens, you as their manager need to walk them through what happened, what went well, what didn't, and what you want them to do next time. Have a conversation about it. It will be difficult, but it will be worth it in the long run. Coaching is a huge part of being a manager and something that should be a focus for you as you grow into that role. So when it comes to conflict, something you'll hear is the word professionalism. Well, they didn't behave professionally. Oof, that word that word can be white supremacy masquerading as behavioral expectations. What you need to identify at your institution is whether or not professionalism is just an expectation of conformity. We need to explain that professionalism is not about performing whiteness, but about creating a workplace where folks are welcome to be who they are and staff are set up for success no matter who they are. We mentioned this earlier, but we want to emphasize the importance of having a workplace that provides psychological safety for your staff, because that is what keeps staff at your institution.
That is so true. When you feel safe, yeah.
Huge.
The last bullet point under cultural shift is a rough one, but one a lot of you have lived. So create equity with performance when it comes to new staff and legacy employees. So this can be difficult to hear, but oftentimes we allow legacy staff to behave in worse ways because they are familiar to us. We know them, right? Like we know that they mean well, and we know that they are good people, but the truth is we let things slide. So this is compared to new staff who come in and are held to a higher standard because our standards are now higher.
Mhm.
So that's just not equitable at all. It's like just not even right. So how do we prevent all of this and set staff up for success? That is where the importance of having consistent standards for every staff, no matter their tenure, is important. So by doing so, you can create a culture of respect and understanding where everyone feels valued and supported. That is called psychological safety, and that is the goal, or should be the goal, of every DEI plan. When staff feels psychologically safe, they are better workers. They feel safe enough to be themselves at work. They feel safe to ask hard questions. I'm going to say this again because like this is important. So when your staff feels safe, they will be better workers. And here's the important thing: they will not leave. You want to retain staff, right? I know,
Yeah.
like it's expensive and time consuming to hire a new employee. So, you want to create a workplace that is safe for them to stay in.
And the unfortunate truth is we have all lost employees, some from retirement, and those are truly wonderful celebrations, while others have found a different job. And well, even others, the situation was not a good one.
Yeah, so I have another example that a colleague of mine shared with me that I think fits perfectly with this. I'll call it the nice guy story. There was an employee, let's call him Ken. I think I'm gonna go see the new Barbie movie, so Ken's name is on my mind. Everyone in the department always commented on how Ken was such a nice guy. They loved talking to him. They wanted to grab a beer with him after work. He was just so helpful and was just all around a nice guy.
Yeah.
But the thing about Ken was that he just wasn't that great at his job. So whenever they would give him feedback, they would sugarcoat it, saying something like, "You're not cataloging as many books as others, but it's okay. Just keep working harder and you'll get there. It's not that bad. You're not that far off." So Ken is thinking that people are giving him constructive feedback and he starts cataloging a bit more. Then people would say, "Good job, Ken, you're doing better." But Ken was nowhere near optimal cataloging levels. They were just too afraid of hurting his feelings because he was such a nice guy. So it comes time that he needs to be let go because it's clear that Ken is just not working out, right?
Yeah.
So he's in this meeting being terminated and is completely blindsided because he thought that he had made improvements. He did, but not enough. He wasn't given proper feedback about his performance and wasn't given a real opportunity to make real improvements. And that honestly just should never have happened. Just like an appraisal, the end of someone's time at the library should not be the first time someone should hear that they need to make improvements.
And as we mentioned before, when we talked about evaluation, this is where all the documentation you've created comes into play. And quite frankly, that's where all the training on conflict resolution comes in. When you can have hard conversations in the moment, you can provide better feedback and you can guide your employees to better work. So whether they were the star employee or the one that needed more support, an employee's exit should be treated with respect and dignity. So we do have a bullet point here that states stay versus exit interviews. A stay interview is when you ask your folks what keeps them here well before they're even thinking of leaving. It could be done as a part of an annual evaluation or more regularly. So that is more of a conversation instead of a top-down judgment. Exit interviews are when things have gone too far and the staff member has already decided to leave, or you, as their manager, have made that decision for them.
So exit interviews are one of the final steps before an employee leaves, and there's no way to make this pleasant, but you can make it consistent and respectful. So
Yes.
instead of an exit interview with an administrator or an HR rep, consider having a peer from an employee group, whether that is a union or staff senate. Employee conducts the interview. So surveys can be great for those who want to remain anonymous, but with a small staff, that can be difficult to remain anonymous. And finally, middle managers can terminate employees in a way that is fair and equitable. They can ensure that the process is transparent and that employees are treated with dignity and respect. This involves having offboarding procedures documented in a public place that all staff can see. So nothing about this process should be a mystery. That can make a rough situation all the worse. And as a manager, you have the opportunity to identify any systematic issues that may have led to the separation and address them accordingly. So for every staff person that makes an exit, it is your chance to figure out what happened and what to not do to repeat the mistakes moving forward. Instead of thinking of separations negatively, really think about it as every exit is an opportunity.
Yeah, good point. So changing things up a bit, managers need to be trained on how to manage. So let's talk about how. So there's no natural born leader, manager, except for Adebola. We all know it. But we've also all seen the consequences of the managers who were promoted to being in that role, and they just were not ready for it. So the following is a generalization, but I'm going to stand by it. I feel there are two types of folks in management positions: the ones in it for the patrons and the staff, and then the ones who are in it for their own careers and their egos. So what do we do? If you've done any reading about being anti-racist, you know the goal is to remove power from the top and redistribute it towards the folks doing the day-to-day work. And your staff should evaluate you as a manager, and you should receive training and support on how to improve as a manager. If you receive no feedback from your staff on how you behave as a manager, that's a problem.
So what can you do?
Mhm.
Request a 360 review or a skip level review in regular intervals. 360 reviews are for everyone around you to evaluate you as an employee, colleague, or manager. Skip level is where your boss interviews your staff about your performance. So how many of you just shuddered a little bit? Well, I didn't, just because, as Whitney said, I was born a manager. So,
Mhm.
like I'm good with this. I'm just kidding, but because everybody can grow and learn. So getting feedback is scary, but like everything else in life, it's important to build that skill. Being a manager who cannot handle feedback is not something to be proud of, or nor should it be something allowed by an institution. It's a major problem that impacts the workplace in a very serious negative way. These evaluations can be expensive, so it may not be possible for it to happen every year. Every 2 years might be an idea. So, and it allows you to start collecting the data on how you may have improved over time. And honestly, appraisals suck, right? Like especially your own.
Yeah.
But when you are trying to be a better manager, you want to get feedback from your supervisor as well as your direct reports. So a lot of places do employ these 360 evaluations, hoping to help the manager get the valuable feedback, but sometimes that just doesn't work out.
Mhm.
So I saw this story on TikTok of a woman who received a 360 evaluation. The feedback was actually not that useful. So one of the things that someone told her was that she uses her looks to get away with things in the organization.
Mm.
She was, in fact, a very beautiful woman, but she works very hard and others couldn't or didn't want to see that. A person in the comments then replied, saying that he received a note saying, no one likes you anyway. So like, what is like a person supposed to do with that feedback? It's not constructive in the least. So if your organization does not have a culture of respect, then a 360 evaluation might not be the best option for you all. Um, so it's kind of a waste of money, but,
Yeah.
and it can cause more harm than good. And it might make a manager not want to try to be better at all.
Yeah. So the focus here is the creation of expectations and evaluations for managers, as well as a support system on how to get managers to improve. Consider forming a mentoring program for managers across all of the institution, not just the library. Also, make attending training mandatory for managers. Your boss should be talking to you about these as well. One thing a former institution of mine almost did really well was a monthly managers meeting, but what made it an almost was that it was not mandatory for managers to attend. So managers, including senior leaders, did not regularly attend, or did they stay throughout the entire meeting. That reflected that being a manager was not important to these folks. It was just another part of their job, but not the most important. What I'll say is that their staff knew that, their staff observed that, and their staff lived with the consequences of that choice daily. So we've touched on some of this earlier in the presentation, but we'd like to talk about our advice to you all as middle managers. So first and foremost, work on your ability to give and receive feedback. If you avoid conflict and punish folks for speaking up, you have some stuff you need to work on. Get really comfortable with really difficult conversations. In conflict resolution, remind yourself and your staff that it is not you versus them or them versus each other. It's you versus the problem, and that's you as a team. If your staff feels safe to ask you difficult questions, that's a gift. If you get asked a difficult question and your reaction is to shut down or get angry, you got to dig deep inside and find out why. Focus on building those conflict resolution skills. It takes practice, so keep practicing. You're not going to get everything right on the first go, so keep going. Something we want to mention here is the importance of you learning how to apologize to your staff when you mess up, especially when it comes to DEI work. Lead by example and own when you mess up. Call yourself out as soon as you can and explain why what you did or said was wrong. Then describe how you will improve moving forward, and then actually do it. Hey, Addie, your mic's off. I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So sorry about that. So if you're committed to being anti-racist, the change starts with you. It's important that you do the work on yourself first and lead by example. Read, research, and reflect. That means read as much as you can about being an anti-racist, then do more research, and then see how you can apply it to your life and career. So it's important to get out of your own echo chamber and build a network of colleagues with whom you can have difficult conversations. So I want to emphasize, though, that this is not the time to heavily rely on the marginalized folks around you. They do enough work daily. And again, we do not want to burn anyone out.
Yeah, and so the following is going to be a really hard topic to cover, but we all know it happens. We've either heard about it through the Whisper Network or maybe even on Twitter. What if your boss is a bigot or someone who is not at the same stage of the anti-racist journey as you, and maybe they take that personally? What if you become a target? So what you need to know here is that you are in a place of privilege as a boss, but you are not untouchable. If your boss is a bigot or someone has decided your commitment to being anti-racist makes you a problem, I hate to tell you, but there's only so much you can do. If you are in this situation now or have been in the past, I want to say I see you and the struggle that you've experienced. I've been there myself, and it is an isolating, traumatic event. The focus here is documentation and knowing when to go to HR or not go to HR. I said this in a session the other day, but HR, the ombuds, these folks are not there to help employees or managers. They are there to keep the institution from being sued. I was a union steward for years, and that got just planted deep. So, even with them, you need to document what is said in any meeting you have with them. Follow everything up with an email, just detailing what was said and decided. So one thing that kills DEI strategic plans is not having a whistleblower policy in place, or maybe your institution has one and it's not evenly applied. Know what your institution's whistleblower policy is. Know what their retaliation policy is. How do they even define retaliation? If your boss is a bigot, you need to know if the institution will protect you. But usually what happens is that the person speaking up is identified as a problem or as a troublemaker. From what I've heard from others and what I've experienced myself, your institution will choose to side with your manager. It puts you in a place to make a very, very hard decision. Please know that you are not alone and you are not the only person that this has happened to. So the biggest takeaway here is you need to know when to leave. Staying to protect your staff is an honorable thing, but in the end, you need to prioritize your mental health before you burn out or before your boss or maybe even their boss decides to kill your career by finding reasons to fire you. And so we must remember this. Academic libraries were founded in white supremacy, and that top-down mentality focuses on keeping power and control at the top. So I'm going to get up on my little soapbox to say this. To those at the top, we want to emphasize the following. Associate deans and higher, stop hiring racists. Stop keeping and protecting racists and other bigots. Do your due diligence in researching the harm that these people are doing. We have to listen to our staff. We have to believe our staff. And we have to recognize the bravery it takes to come forward and say, hey, my boss is behaving in a problematic way and we need to stop it. I'm not undermining them, but I am holding them to the standard that you all laid out in our DEI plan. And administrators, we have to stop pushing out or firing folks who want to make the library better by having those difficult conversations. No institution will do or be better until we can start calling out these people and stop giving them jobs. When bigots are protected, those who worked with them are silent about the harm they caused their marginalized colleagues. And the marginalized colleagues are the folks who will leave the institution and maybe even the profession. And it's time for a change.
Honestly, the entire time you were talking, I was like, period. Sorry, but it's, it is time for a change. Like, we need a revolution, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So where do you go from here? So continue to educate yourself about your own identity. Understand your own identity and how it can serve as privilege or oppression. Do the intentional self-work. Continue to read and learn from scholars who are part of the community. So like read from the community that you want to know more about. So read things from Black feminists, read up on queer theory. What about, readings of words written by Native and Indigenous folks, like, a lot of things that you could read. And also you all work in libraries, so it shouldn't be that difficult to get these materials. So question everything you know to be true. question what you have been told, as most of us have been taught that there's only one way of thinking. Unpack any biases that you have learned about marginalized groups. And when you say you don't stand for racism, do you actually have an action to support that? Are you silent when you witness discrimination? Do you intervene when you see someone misuse pronouns or use offensive identity charged jokes? Amplify the voices of the marginalized staff that reports to you or the peers who are in the room with you. So like, just don't let others talk over them, their voices matter. And when someone gives you feedback about unintentional or intentional harm, listen. Remain present, and when you are, remain present when you are uncomfortable. Recognize that you will make mistakes. It is inevitable as a manager, but you can correct your behaviors and be better tomorrow. And all of our lived experiences are a culmination of our social identities interacting within a system of oppression. So your worldview will not look like anyone else's worldview. However, just because you do not have the same perspective or the same lived experience does not make your worldview untrue. So we want to give you all some key takeaways. And we hope that you all have either learned something or at least had your curiosity piqued and you return to your libraries ready to analyze and reflect on how your role as a manager can help move DEI forward at your institution. But if you do not remember anything from this presentation, since it was a lot, at least remember the following. So make sure that your searches are consistent, transparent, and respectful. Never hire for fit. Create a DEI focused goal that everyone will be working towards so that it is easy to remember to embed it in everyone's work. Documentation is important, so document. Give feedback in a timely manner and be open to receiving feedback. And allow staff to come to work as they truly are and don't try to make them conform to your standards to make you happy. And last but not least, no manager is perfect. Continue learning and growing as a manager so that you do not cause harm to your employees.
Yeah, and so here are a few resources that talk about the impact a middle manager can have on the success of DEI initiatives. While a lot of these are from the business/corporate world, the themes and suggestions can be applied to libraries. We suggest getting together with some of the folks you've met here and discuss how. I also want to say quickly, these are not organized well, and I'm so sorry, my fellow librarians, I feel like I failed you.
It's all good. Well, I'm speaking for everyone on behalf of you, sorry. So thanks for your time here today. We appreciate the journey we just went on together. It was wonderful and magical. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to either or both of us directly. Thank you.
Adebola and Whitney, thank you so much. That was really wonderful. We do have time for some Q&A, and there are quite a few questions.
Great.
Do remember, if you still have questions, to add those to the Q&A section. And I will read off our first one. This one has quite a few upvotes, and I think you spoke to it a little bit, but we'll see if you can dive in anymore. How can we hold upper management accountable for appropriate engagement and development in areas of equity and inclusion, especially when administration feels they've already done the work? Spoiler, they have not.
Yeah. What are you thinking?
I was like, you take that one.
Well, the truth is that you're stronger in numbers. The absolute worst thing that can happen is that you have one person at a time going and asking for improvements. That person's just going to get targeted and then pushed out, or I don't know, emotionally broken forever. Hopefully not forever. But you are stronger together in numbers. So if you all come together and say, listen, what's going on right now? It's not good enough. Here's what we want. Be organized about your request. Have actionable things that you want from your admin. Well, that's what's popping up for me, Adebola. What about you?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Admin likely doesn't know what else could be done. And so they thought that they did it, and so if you don't give them some actionable things to do, and the impact that their lack of action is having on you can speak volumes as well. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Next one is, what about following up with staff who have attended a DEI training, asking about how they're going to implement what they've learned from the training? The more specific, the better. If a response is written, then add it to their performance goals.
Yeah.
It's great advice.
Yeah,
Perfectly said.
Great advice. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Can you all speak to the situation when a person uses the language of DEI to
Mhm.
advocate for something they want and aren't a part of the group they purport to advocate for? I'd
Mhm.
be interested to hear how a manager might respond to this.
Okay, so they're not part of the group, but they're
Mhm.
using DEI. I'm so sorry. Can you repeat this
Yeah,
question?
yeah, yeah. So someone is using sort of DEI language to advocate for something, but they aren't a part of the group they're
Mhm.
supposed to be advocating for. And how would a manager sort of deal with that situation?
Okay.
Well, personally, for me, as a manager, if I were to see this, and if I actually recognize it, because maybe I would, that's the first thing is, does a manager recognize that there's something off
Mhm.
about this, and why? I would say, why are you doing this? Like, who are you advocating for, and why? Do you feel
Mhm.
like they don't actually have a voice? Um, and
Mhm.
and if they, hopefully they tell me that, tell me what's going on. So yeah, I'm gonna question everything. That's just as a manager. Not to be like I don't trust this person, but if it feels funny, you should kind of question it.
Yeah.
But then I'm also going to ask if they could work together with the group that they are advocating for and speaking for, if at all possible, because again, I want to amplify the voices of those that are marginalized. And
Mhm.
clearly, they have that person who's coming forward probably does have some political power or
Mhm.
some political capital in the organization, which is why they're probably doing it. But
Mhm.
that they can use that force for good as well, and work with the person to also give them that political capital. So like kind of give a little bit of it to them.
Mhm.
All right. Next one, we've got a sort of detailed scenario here for you.
Sure.
Says, I really struggle with supporting an employee who has a marginalized identity. They feel they should be able to be truthful and direct. This often looks like them yelling at colleagues, accusing colleagues of actions that didn't take place, name calling, etc. I've been working with them to help them understand the impact of their actions on the work environment, such as coworkers feeling unsafe or refusing to work with them. But this employee says that I'm not letting them be who they are, that my suggestions aren't worthy because they reflect supremacy.
Mm.
Oh my gosh, that's deep.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I could take a stab at this a little bit, and then I'll definitely let Whitney speak as well. I've been in that position of being labeled as the you know, both Whitney and I have talked about,
Mhm.
like, when we call something out, then, we're looked at as the negative person and the
Mhm.
bully in the situation. And really, I guess, you know what? I'm sorry. I don't actually have anything to say right now. Whitney, can you say something?
Sure. But you come back in when you feel ready,
Yes.
okay? So for me, ooh, this is okay. All right. This is gonna be a doozy. We're gonna work through this together. So for me, we have to be very careful of centering um, you know, emotions over psychological safety. So this person has a marginalized identity. Um, they should feel, I feel, in a healthy work environment, they should be truthful and direct. um, if they are actually yelling is not a sign of a healthy work environment. So we can talk to them about, how do you give feedback? We want you to be truthful. We want you to be direct. But doing it with a, louder voice can be upsetting to some folks. You know, and then the accusing of colleagues of actions that didn't take place, name calling. Um, somewhere having a reaction to what they're experiencing. And your role as a manager is not to question their lived experience, right? So they feel that, stuff is happening, name calling is happening. Your role as a manager is to talk them through it, and then to lay out the expectations of the behavior in the workplace. So you're doing the one on one coaching. Um, but we also need to talk about the potential of those coworkers holding some bias against that, what groups that person is from. Adebola, do you want to swing back in?
No, you said it so
Okay.
well. I don't have anything to add to it.
All right.
All right, thank you. Your Ken anecdote hit home. You have that exact person, super nice, but not able to keep up with output expectations.
Mhm.
On one side of the conversation, there's a lot of significant personal upheaval and change that is impacting their mental health. This person knows they are not performing at 100%.
Mhm.
They feel that extenuating circumstances, i.e. the personal turmoil and mental health challenges, are not being taken into consideration in their performance evals. How do you navigate extenuating circumstances? When are you not giving them enough flexibility? When are you giving too much?
Yeah.
I mean, I think in this situation, it is always like if I were to have a conversation with the person who asked the question, I would ask more questions. I am a
Mhm.
librarian, so it is a reference interview and also a journalist. So sorry. So, but one of the things is if you are aware of what's happening and you have made accommodations and you've been flexible, or you feel like you've been flexible, one of the things that I do tend to ask my employees if they feel like I'm not doing enough, is to ask them what else they would like me to do. What do they need? Because sometimes I find that I have given somebody something and that's not actually like, I'm like, oh, I have a solution for you. I found a solution and that's not even what they wanted or needed, but they took it because they were like, well, you're giving me something. So it's like being a partner again with them on the help that they need to succeed and stay successful in the role. But also there does come a point where you might need to go to HR and get like a formal accommodation if that's something that they need as well.
Yeah, FMLA, there are things that, I know I dunked on HR earlier in the presentation. They do some good things on occasion. So like FMLA, getting, short-term disabilities, thing like that, depending on, what that person's going through, there are things that you can do to be proactive. But when in doubt, you talk your expectations. What are you capable of? How can I help? What do you need? Just remember that this person is going through so much, and they really are doing their best even on the days where it doesn't look like it. um, yeah.
Okay. The stay interviews. I love the idea of a stay versus an exit interview. I hate the barriers around how I can respond. For
Mhm.
example, there's no promotion or a pay raise path that I can help them plan toward. Do you have advice on how to frame this kind of a stay interview justly to not make staff feel like they weren't listened to or believed?
Mhm. Yeah, so I would say be upfront from the beginning. Be like, I can't, I don't have money for you. I don't have a promotion thing to do for you, but you can do other things. Do you have an opportunity where the two of you could publish or present together? Could you set this person up for a special project that you have going? One of the things that you should be really open to doing is, all right, 80% of your time, I have to have you do everything that's in your job description, but this other 20%, let's play with that 20%. What would make you thrilled, to spend Friday afternoon, every single Friday afternoon for the rest of the year on? Talk to them about, where on their CV they don't feel, they don't feel proud of, or they feel, like not so great on. Is there training that you could sponsor them to take, or, things like that? So, you know, you just want to ask, again, it goes back to the answer that we just gave, where, where can you help them? You just got to ask them, right? What do you think, Adebola?
Yeah, I was actually going to say to HR told
Mhm.
me about state interviews here at NC State. I never heard of state interviews until I got here. And so I have employed them here recently. And I did actually have a state interview that didn't go the way that I
Mhm.
anticipated because I didn't really get anything from it. And one of the questions, or we got something from it. It just wasn't what I was hoping or thinking. So came in with preconceived expectations, and then I ended up being slightly disappointed. But
Yeah.
then, reframed my thinking, and which was, one of the questions we asked, like, what, why are you motivated, or what gets you up going to work every day? Like, why do you come here, and they were like, yeah, because y'all pay me. And it was like, oh, okay. Yeah, true. Like, that is why I come to work too,
Yeah.
because you're paying me. And so it was like, what else is going to motivate you, like, give you renewed spirit in your job? And it's like, no, I'm good. Like, I'm here. And so we didn't actually find any opportunities or growth opportunities for them, but that was actually really valuable information, was just to know that they, you know, wanted to do a job and they were going to do it and do it well. So yeah, that's very valuable as well.
Yeah.
So
I'd also take it a step further if I can be bold, where it's like, if you know you've got a go-getter on your team and they are, what is it from Hamilton, young, hungry, and scrappy or something? Okay. Anyway, get me away from quoting things. But, if you have that person who just, they've got all the motivation in the world, they want to do more, you're going to hit a point where you're going to have a very honest conversation where it's like, there's only so much that I can do. Let's start looking at jobs for you if you're ready, if you can afford it, and then I'm going to be the best reference you've ever had. I'm going to be your support system, because job hunts are awful. So you can become that staff member's biggest cheerleader, their support system. And it doesn't have to be awkward in any way.
Okay. Let's see. We've got a couple more minutes. How can we push administrators to listen to employees who don't want to hear about low morale, negative experiences, etc.? What if your administrators think everything is just fine?
I just want to actually say that I don't really think any administrator, if everybody has low morale, they're just being delusional if they don't actually see it, because they know. And I mean, personally, I think that's true. They might not know how bad it is, but I think they know something. And so one of the things is, again, I always like impact statements, and making sure that you are showing like how this morale, like the negative morale, is impacting the services that you're providing, or, your retention or whatever. So, it's coming armed with documentation, it's coming armed with things when you're talking to them, because it shouldn't be about your feelings, because a lot of times the admin, not just admin, but just in general, people can't respond well to your feelings. They need to, be able to do action. And so it is coming forward, repeating, something that Whitney said earlier, like, you come with your facts, and then you come with an action plan, and be prepared on what you would like to see being done.
Yeah. And if you have a staff group, whether that's, a union, a staff senate, something like that, start sending out surveys, start gathering data. A lot of your staff folks are scared in situations like that, in institutions where it's so painfully obvious that admin, your senior leaders, don't give a single hoot about the lived experience of the day-to-day folks. But you want to start building up evidence. You want to start building up data. We're librarians. We love the data. So you get it together. You start sending out that survey, and then you want to send that survey out every year, every 2 years, and you want to keep track. You want to use the same questions, and you want to be able to track whether things have gotten better or not. And hate to be a negative person in any way. Some admin folks are going to be scared to death when you even mention it, but you're going to do it anyway, because something about being a middle manager, again, we have privilege, and we got to be brave, and we got to use it.
Yeah.
Okay. There are actually many more questions that we are never going to have time to get to, but I do want to encourage everyone. There is the COM Discord, so if you continue this conversation, do feel free over there. Adebola and Whitney, thank you so much. This was really wonderful. I really appreciate you taking the time today. Before we close, I do want to point everyone here to the evaluation survey that's available for you. I'm sure presenters would appreciate your feedback. There will be a link to the evaluation is in Schedule. It's labeled feedback survey, and it's right above the session description. Please do keep in mind our code of conduct as you complete this evaluation form. I hope you all had an excellent day today with COM, and thanks again to our two presenters, and I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day.
Have a great night,
Thank you.
folks. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.